of Ingebrigtsen is going to do in the 1500. He has time to look behind him. 20 years of age, and he is on top of the world.
But coming down for a maiden national crown, Cornwall is the champion.
Algarouz has run his race, or has he? Has he got anything left? Algarouz trying to get there. Kipchoge, the junior's there. Algarouz is trying to get to the line. Kenya wins it. Kipchoge takes
Vivian Chariot's turn. And what a proud moment for her and the Kenyans. The first woman from her nation to take the 5,000 metre title. Vivian Chariot's in Dreamland.
on the outside. Ollie Hall of Australia comes. Jake Whiteman has just spent. It's going to be Chariot and Hall. Who's going to get it? It's going to be Australia. The gold.
Amy Bunnage is one of Australia's most exciting and talented young runners. Amy is well known in the Australian running community after a stellar junior career. During these years, Amy won 6 Australian championships. Amy is perhaps best known for breaking the Australian under-20 3,000 metre record when she clocked 8:51.90 at the 2023 Sydney Track Classic as a 17-year-old. She finished third in that race behind Jessica Hull. The time she clocked that day is the 14th fastest all time by an Australian of any age. We caught up with Amy at a pivotal moment in her career. She has just kicked off a 4-year scholarship at Stanford University, and interestingly, she has just signed an NIL deal with On Running. We sat down with both Amy and her longtime friend, who now works for On Running, Craig Mottram, to dive deep into the NIL deal and what it really means for Amy. Amy and Craig, it's lovely to have you here on Runners Tribe. Amy, where are you at the moment?
I'm currently in Palo Alto, so where Stanford University is located in California.
Nice. Craig, you're home in Melbourne, I presume?
Not as fantastic as where Amy is, but yep, in Melbourne at the HQ, the headquarters for the new OAC Oceania team in Melbourne.
Nice. Guys, we're here because I reached out. Amy, you've just secured an NIL deal with On Running, the emerging brand that most Aussies have heard about now, because Ollie Hawes obviously kind of brought the brand to a lot of Australians' attention. For those listeners who have absolutely no idea what an NIL deal is, can you please just run us through the basics as per how you see it?
So NIL stands for name, image and likeness, and I guess it's a way to provide collegiate athletes with support while they're over here studying. It's something that previously hasn't been able to happen, and now it provides support to a lot of athletes.
Awesome. And with On, is this deal kind of with On USA or with On Australia, or is it a company? I know with a lot of other big brands, like the Australian division and the American division, it's just so separated. They never talk to each other. Is On small enough that those two still speak to each other a lot? Because Craig's here, I'm assuming so. But is the deal with On Australia or with On USA, or is it both?
I guess it's kind of both, but more through On Australia, just with the visa situation and being a student here in the US.
Awesome. And how did it come to pass, Amy? Did kind of On reach out to you, or did you reach out to On, or was it through Craig, or how did all that kind of occur?
Well, I guess I've known Craig for a long time now, nearly 10 years. And just through a few different conversations, the NIL deal possibility came about, and now we're here today, and I've got an NIL deal with On, and I'm really grateful for the opportunity to work with them.
Awesome. So how did you first meet Craig?
So Craig was the coach at the school I went to back in Melbourne. We both started there in the same year, and then he was the head coach of the cross country and track and field team, and which I was a part of.
How was that? I wish I had Craig Mottram as my cross country coach as a kid. Hey.
We were actually speaking about Amy. Not sorry to butt in, Sam. We were speaking about this not long ago, trying to figure out how long we'd actually known each other for. And I think it is actually 10 years, which is bloody terrifying because it's showing my age. But I think Amy started at Haileybury College, which was the school in year 7. And I remember her being only so high. And occasionally you get these pictures on your phone of Facebook messages or whatever else that come up, memories and stories. And it's always funny to watch Amy's progression over the last 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years to now. So yeah, we've certainly known each other for a long time.
That's awesome. On a side note, Craig, are you still coaching cross country?
Absolutely, mate. That's what we do. So still in the school, still running the business with the sport and wellbeing programs schools in Victoria. And obviously this OAC gig, which we'll get into no doubt in a minute, is taking up a bit more of my time as we progress forward.
Man, it's cool to see where this may lead. I mean, obviously it started a relationship with Amy. It kind of reminds me a bit of Pat Clohessy, coaching, teaching history and coaching cross, and meeting a young Di Costello once upon a time.
Well, it is. It's amazing how much talent you can see in our school system, not only in Victoria, but nationally across all of our schools, both independent and public. I suppose we get first sight of these younger athletes as they're progressing, and you can see them as they're coming into year 7 and year 8 in their early years of secondary school. And those fortunate enough, like Amy, that are at a level where they get opportunities to go over to the US college system and schools like Stanford and meet the necessary criteria to do that is fantastic. But now with the added opportunities of these NILs, which is the sort of flavour of the month at the moment, athletes have that opportunity to get the college education and that lifestyle and that experience, but also have the opportunity to work with pretty cool brands in the process.
Amy, post your collegiate career, there's a few kind of queries that just kind of popped up in my head. But is there an expectation to kind of return to Australia and base yourself in Melbourne with the squad, or once you leave college, is that all up for kind of a renegotiation? Is this simply just a relationship that has been started here with no kind of long-term obligations?
I guess we'll just have to wait and see where it goes. I'd love the opportunity to train and live back in Melbourne, like the place I call home. And I guess On and the OAC Oceania now provides that opportunity to do so. So yeah, it's very appealing in the future, but we'll see how I go over the next 4 years in college.
Awesome. Hey, Craig, from your perspective, once obviously an NIL deal is completely different, but let's talk about just athletes who are not in college. There is obviously an expectation if someone's based in Sydney that they base themselves then in Melbourne in order to be part of the On program. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome.
So let me dig into that a bit more for you, Sam, if you like. And the OAC is a global movement. There's 3 teams. There's one here the first team was in the US, obviously with Dathan Ritz-Anand, which is the OAC global team based in Boulder, Colorado. There's the OAC European team, which is coached by Thomas over there, which is based in Berlin and in St. Moritz. And then the third team is our Oceania team, which is based in Melbourne. All of the teams operate independently. So they've all got their own coach. They've all got their own setup and infrastructure in terms of what they need. And they all have their own team of athletes. And they go off and do what they need to do when they need to do it. So the Oceania team stands on its own, albeit supported globally by On. And then if we need to go and network into the US group with Dathan and Boulder, Colorado, we can do that. Or in St. Moritz with Thomas, we can certainly do that, and vice versa. If they want to come to Australia, they can access and utilise the facilities here and the resources we have. But we're in essence 3 teams working together to be the best teams in the world, but we're left to our own devices to do that and use the means that we see necessary to be able to achieve that with our own athletes.
And that's cool. Hey, I heard that maybe you guys rented a house and you have a house kind of for the athletes in Melbourne now. Did I hear right? You
hear correct, Sam.
Nice.
Yeah, so we've just taken a property in Richmond about 400 metres from the gym, an OAC house for the athletes. Obviously, and as Amy alluded to, moving back to Australia is something a lot of our athletes want to do, especially those that are in college that haven't necessarily had that opportunity in the past to be part of a professional team here. It's new to this region. And one of the barriers to that being successful, in my opinion, was the cost of living in Australia and in Melbourne in particular. So trying to give them, those athletes, that opportunity to come and base in Australia and purely be able to focus on running and everything they need to do in and outside of running to be the best they can be is really important. And I think a stable home environment for them is certainly one of that. So we've just got that up and running. We've now got all of the athletes. We've got 10, and with Amy, 11 athletes now in the OAC Oceania group, all living and training in Melbourne outside of Amy, obviously, who's in Stanford. But but we want to encourage our athletes to come home. We think we've got the best environment here for them to take on the world. We've seen it done before from an individual point of view in middle and long distance running. Now we think we can do it with the team, and we've got the setup to do it.
Man, this sounds like a big house. I want to know who gets dibs on
They're not all in the one house. Some have the opportunity to live separate. Like you can choose. Like you can go and live in your own apartment or whatever. So Morty, for example, lives with her fiance and just up the road, and Tess with her partner around the corner, and Ben obviously with his fiance as well. But those athletes coming back from college, obviously that they need somewhere to go, and renting a place on your own in Melbourne is very, very expensive. So we've got 3 athletes in the house at the moment. We'll probably have 4 by the end of the year, and we'll keep it there. I mean, if we need a bigger house, we can do that, but the dynamic, Sam, of putting 10 athletes in one house for a long period of time doesn't always end well. So it's making sure that you get all the pieces right, and everyone is happy and content, and the environment's suitable for all.
Who gets dibs on, say, like the biggest bedroom with an ensuite? Is that up for you to select, or?
Funnily enough, it is in this. Yeah, can't leave it to natural selection because they'll kill each other. Imogen, she's the only girl in the house at the moment. So she's got the big upstairs master bedroom with ensuite, and the 2 boys, Jesse and Ed, are downstairs in the smaller bedrooms. So I think that one was quite easy to resolve. But if we do eventually move into another house, maybe we'll see what happens. We'll leave it to them and see who ends up in the big master suite.
Hey, Amy, I hear you've been in Colorado lately on a training camp with the On Squad. How are you finding sort of the group culture and training kind of compared to your team at Stanford?
I guess I was in Colorado with the Stanford cross-country team.
Gotcha. I was misunderstood there. Yeah. I understand. Yeah, awesome.
So it was like a pre-season camp. And yeah, it was an incredible group of athletes to become a part of. They know how to have a lot of fun, but they also know when it's time to work hard. And yeah, it was a nice balance between like the serious and competitive side of running, but also keeping it really lighthearted and fun.
And so how are you enjoying college? I mean, I know you've got a long road ahead of you, but how has the initial kind of experience been? And are you kind of some athletes get to college and they last 3 weeks and they, get the first flight out of there back home, and others just embrace it and totally love it. Where do you see yourself kind of being? I know it's early.
I guess I haven't really been able to settle in yet. We haven't started classes or anything, so I've sort of just been running and like being a part of the team, I guess, going on camp and things like that. But from next week, I'm hoping I'll be able to settle into more of a routine with class structure and more structured training and just everything starting up.
Awesome. Craig, most listeners, of course, know your background. But for those that aren't up to speed in your recent movement, is On Running now kind of, one of the major parts of your job? I know you've got this, really growing coaching business, but does On just slid in there and you kind of just manage? Does this made you an incredibly busy man, is what I'm getting at? Or is On now your kind of main focus?
I think everybody's busy in this lifestyle that we have now. But we have our own. So my wife and I have our own business, Elite Wellbeing Enterprises. We run sport wellbeing programs for schools, and that's how I met guys like Amy and Claudia, who's another member of the team. We met through the school programs that we run. We put coaches into schools to facilitate those programs. That's still a massive part of my day-to-day. I love that business. I love what we've set up and working with great people there. And obviously it has a flow-on effect to being able to see and identify the next generation of talent as well. So it has in many respects actually helps and assists with what we're doing in terms of the growth of this OAC Oceania group. But the On connection started for me a couple of years ago when I was spoken to about whether or not there was an OAC Oceania group that I thought we could get up and going in our region. They identified our sort of location in Melbourne and the success we've had with our middle distance groups across the board here in Australia as an area of growth and opportunity. And I agree with them. I thought that was certainly an area of scope to improve. And so we've set this up. It's taken a couple of years to get it to this point. It's taken a lot more time and energy than we probably thought it would in the beginning. As all good things do, though, they sort of they consume you. And it's certainly a big part of what I do every day. I'm in gym here in Melbourne, in Richmond, every day working with athletes. I mentioned earlier we've now got a full squad. So we've got 10 guys, 10 guys and girls, a combination of both. that are training every day together in Melbourne. And I think in our school programs, we've got about 18,000 kids that we facilitate programs for, but the 10 that are in the OAC take up more time than those 18,000 kids do across the school programs. So once you get into the high performance side of sport, you can't do it half-assed or half-baked. You have to be all in. So long-winded answer, I'm all in, and this is certainly something that we're wanting to grow and continue to build, not for the short term. This isn't something through to Paris. This is something that we've got investment through to Brisbane in 2032, which I think is pretty cool.
Oh, that's awesome. This kind of questions, but kind of both of you. But Amy, I presume the coaching roles 100% will be left to JJ Clark at Stanford, and Craig, obviously, with his vast knowledge, it will be too hard to have two coaches, and JJ Clark will take care of it all. Is that accurate?
Yes. Yeah.
Awesome. Amy, like how much like On has had such success, like this Yared Nagoose, who, for those living under a rock, he posted a 3:43, one of the fastest miles in history the other day behind Ingebrigtsen at the pre-classic. It's not just Yared though. There's, obviously Ollie Hoare, who's won Com Games 1500 and is just, posting some times that I'm sure even Craig has been looking at thinking, holy crap, But then there's other guys too, George Beamish, Maud McDonald, and then there's the European squad as well. How much, has this success of the On squad over the last few years kind of influenced the decision? Obviously, there's a lot of successful athletes out there, but they do seem, on a ratio of how many athletes they have compared to their success, they do seem to be kind of punching a little bit above their weight. Is that kind of your line of thinking as well?
Yeah, I guess the athlete success was really appealing to me within the brand, but honestly, just like the brand in general was the main attraction. It's on the newer side in the athletic world, but it's definitely asserting itself as a force to be reckoned with, like on and off the track. Yeah, I really like the shoes and apparel, but I also really admire the efforts they're making to make a positive environmental impact.
Awesome. Hey, Craig, like with all the success I just mentioned, like, I can imagine just starting a new squad in Australia and just trying to live up to some of these huge kind of results. Like, is there a little bit of pressure felt by you to kind of live up to some of this success, or is it more just an excitement to be a part of something at the ground level?
Oh, it's a bit of everything. I think I'm excited to be involved from the ground level and getting this up and going in Australia, in our region. But I've known Dathan, who's the coach of the US team, for many, many years. We competed against each other. We had some good competitions over the days, and years gone past over various distances. So, seeing what he's been able to do over there is fantastic. And obviously knowing his background and his history is also brilliant to know that he's been able to do this quite quickly with the US team. But in some respects, that also adds quite a bit of pressure and expectation as well. But I think just to be really clear with you guys and your listeners, and for Amy as well, and for anyone else out there, the development of this group is the most important thing longer term. I mean, the US group with Dathan is the sort of medal group as such. They're the sort of big hitters, if you like, in terms of the performance side of the OAC for the short term. And one of the things that was made really clear to me in the beginning was that this is something that's going to take time to build, especially in Australia, because we're a fair way removed from the rest of the world, which has positives and negatives. But this isn't a short-term solution. We're looking for something longer-term to build, and that's why we're building relationships and bringing athletes like Amy on our NIL deals with the brand and with the OAC group down here, because we see so many positives for what they're going to do for the sport longer term. And that's the vision of this team. It's building a team of athletes that are going to develop over the next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 years between Paris, LA. Well, we were going to have the Com Games in Melbourne, but we all know what happened there. And then obviously Brisbane in 2032. So we have no illusions that this is a long road, absolutely. But we're going to have athletes that make teams and have success in the short term, but ultimately it's about building a team and an environment that has long-term sustainable growth and development, and ultimately achieving medals in the next 5 to 10 years.
Awesome. I think obviously from a competition point of view, you know, like if you look at the road that you kind of travel down as an 18-year-old, 19-year-old sort of thing, and just having a second option or a third option, or however you want to argue it now, for Australia's elite middle distance runners, right? And just having that competition where people can choose and select, you know, those really top tier athletes is what I'm getting at. It's got to be a good thing, right, in the long term.
It does, absolutely. And I know when I took this role on a couple of years ago that it would be met with some resistance in Australia. That's just part of the politics of Australian athletics. And unless you're in it, it's hard to appreciate and understand it. But in my honest opinion, I think the sport really needs it, in particular in the middle distance space. I think it's necessary. I think it's healthy. And I view it this way, in that whatever the OAC is doing in Australia and around the world is beneficial for everybody, and other brands as well, and other athletes that are working with other brands, because they see what we're doing and they may not like it in the short term, but ultimately what it does is drive more interest, more investment and more money in the sport across the board. So you can already see the impact the OAC has had in our region with On and with the On House and with the facilities we have in Melbourne. Other brands are starting to be more aggressive in trying to follow trend with that. And if that's not good for everyone, I don't know what else is. So really, I think the positive side of this for the athletes that are part of the team is phenomenal, because they get an amazing opportunity, but also for athletics as a whole, it's only going to bring more interest and excitement and ultimately money and support into our sport, which is what we need.
100%. Totally. Amy, have you had a chance to get to campus yet and check out the facilities, or is it very much still, yeah, you have?
Yeah, so I've been using them for the past week. I've moved into my dorm, and yeah, I've been able to use like the weights room, the locker room, and then the training facilities on campus. They're pretty incredible for a university, and yeah, I'm
bit of a
excited
step up to kind of what you're used to.
Definitely, yes.
How good's that? And is this like, and I presume like there's a lot of support, you know, from everything from massage therapists to access to physios if you have a niggle, and it's all kind of there for you, hey?
Definitely, yes. There's access to many things.
And so cool. Okay, that brings my mind back to this house, Craig. And I'm just thinking, in my head, I have this picture of a house with like altitude tents in every room, and an Ultra G, you know, those anti-gravity treadmills in one of the rooms. And how accurate am I here? You know, is it decked out with all the stuff that these guys need, in kind of high-end tech stuff that most athletes never get access to?
Well, I'll say this much: there's cups, plates, knives and forks, a couch, a TV, and a couple of beds. So yeah, they got everything they need, Sam. They got everything they need. There's no magic pill in all of this sort of stuff. I actually had meetings with athletes this morning about this exact thing. Yes, we do have an altitude tent, but it's not in the house. It's one that sort of goes between athletes as required. We don't have an Ultra G. I'm not sure on that investment in terms of money well spent there, but we have access to one at a physio clinic nearby if we need it. We have a team physio that works out of the gym space. I'm in my office here at the moment. Within the gym, who treats 3 days a week. They have everything they need. And in reality, they only need a good attitude and a good environment. That's it. And the training, yes, the training has to be right, but there's not one thing that's going to make them great. It's the combination of lots of things and their desire and will to go deeper than anyone else. Awesome. And we were actually talking about it today with regards to times and how fast everyone's running, and technology and lights and all of those various bits and pieces. I think the main reason people are running fast is they've taken this block out of their mind now around what's good times, what's expected and what's not. And they're just running. They're just running hard, and they're training smart, and the natural progression and evolution of our sport is happening in front of us, which is the last few years in particular. The sport's gone mad from that point of view, both men and women. I mean, we had a lady nearly break 14 minutes for 5K on the weekend in the US. Like, that's terrifying. Well, yeah. Not terrifying. It's exciting, really, in terms of how fast people are now running. So what have we got to do to improve that? Is it train harder? Probably not. It's the psychology, in my opinion, around what you can and can't do, and what our athletes are able to achieve.
Totally. And Craig, I'm going to have to get you on the podcast another time, because I could legit talk to you for an hour or two, just 100% about training, and I'd love to do that at some time. But today's not that day. But
that worries me. No.
So you cut out
We'll
there.
find another time.
Yeah.
I said, that's what terrifies me, Sam. You and I, we got on a podcast, we'd be on there all day. So I think we'll find a time, more appropriate time.
We'll find another time for that, because I would just love to, there's some stuff I would just love to pick your brain on for everyone to hear, and just get the way your brain, wraps its head around certain things. Craig, one more question. We're going to get out of here soon. I'm going over my time limit, I think, but how are athletes targeted? I think we've kind of already covered it in the sense that, you've got relationships with most of these athletes that go back years, and you kind of already have pre-existing relationships. So I think you're probably not actually reaching out. But let's take another athlete, for example, Zach Fascioni. Like, are you reaching out to their coaches or to them, or, just interested in how all that kind of works?
Yeah, it's a bit of everything, to be honest. I mean, those athletes that are in the college system in the US, we're touching base with. So I'm communicating with quite a few at the moment that are in the US system that we would love to have as part of the team in the next 1 or 2 or 3 years, depending on when they're finishing up. But as in Zach's case, I reached out to him last year and had a chat with him about what his intentions were when he finished up in the US. He was working with Sean Whipp, who's an agent based in Melbourne, who I know really well. He works with Ben Buckingham as well, Sean Whipp. So it was a combination of chats between Zach, myself, Sean Whipp, and then also Zach's coach over in the US, and just understanding what type of training he was doing, what upside he has, whether he wants to come back to Australia, is that something he wants to do. But ultimately, it's communication between multiple channels, and then the seed is planted, and then I leave it with them. Because if you're going to come back to Australia and take that leap of faith, they've got to really want to do it. And if I'm pushing them and pushing them and pushing them, it doesn't always work well in the long run. They've got to really make that call themselves. So I think what will happen now, Sam, moving forward, or what I hope happens now moving forward, is the team is up and running. We've got 10 athletes in the group. Ultimately, we become a desirable group to want to be associated with and train with, that athletes will start reaching out more and more. We've got a pipeline of talent that we're currently communicating with in the US and in Europe, and obviously here in Australia as well. The initial vision was to have Australian athletes or Oceania athletes, Australian and New Zealand athletes, fill the team. We've got that now. And now, we're open to conversations with other athletes from various parts of the world as well now over the next 1, 2, 3 years, and potentially bring in some internationals also to help bolster the stocks.
Awesome. Hey, Amy, you mentioned before that your parents are in town. I was thinking, when I was your age, if I moved to the States, I reckon my dad would have been there, making sure I wasn't eating like blocks of cheese for kind of breakfast, lunch and dinner. How long are your parents hanging around for? Are they heading off soon, or are they staying put for a while?
They're going to be here for about 2 weeks, and then I'm sure they'll be back over the next few years. Plenty. They seem to like it here a lot.
Nice. Also, it must be nice just to have them around at the start, just to get settled and have a bit of feeling of home, at that start. It can be hard, hey, just suddenly going from home to to a dorm and meet, it's a lot of change.
Yeah, definitely.
Awesome. Craig, Amy, it's been really enjoyable chatting. I've certainly learned a lot and had a good time. And Amy, I just wanted to wish you all the best. You've got a big road ahead of you, and I hope you have fun more than anything, and get a lot out of it from a personal level, and develop as, on a personal front, not just about the times and the racing, all the best for it.
Thank you so much.
Cheers. Craig, mate, we'll catch up again soon. Can't wait to dive deep into some double threshold talk with you.
Righto, Sam. I look forward to it. Amy, hey, well, I've got you online. Good luck. Have some fun, mate. And we'll keep in touch, obviously, on the weekly, and we look forward to watching you progress over the next little while over there.
Thank you.